will call this meeting to order. So this is the December 12th meeting of the Community and Economic Development Committee, and we need to just do a roll call so that we know who's here, please.
Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant is out in the hall and will be in. Mr. Dunbar? Ms. Solotel? Here. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. So it looks like the first thing is the quarterly marijuana license report. So I think everybody's got a copy. And-
We're good, there's nothing to report.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
First quarter ever, we have had no violations, so it's excellent.
Yeah, I
Quick
saw
going
that
out.
last night. So.
Pardon?
Did you quit looking?
No, no, absolutely not. No. The industry's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and life is good. So I'm gonna enjoy it while we have it.
Yeah, exactly. So.
The one we had the most problem was replace their mechanical system, and that eliminated their odor problems. We've had no complaints at all. Street maintenance is right behind them. They're on Bering Street. They don't smell anything anymore, and so it's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at this last night too, and I thought, is that for real?
Well, I did last night too. I logged off from home and went to our complaint system and said, surely somebody missed something here. And I went back and looked, no, we're good.
Yeah. So very nice. Okay, well, good news. Mandy, anything that you wanted to point out on the rest of it?
As far as like the taxes, we've checked for those ones and they've paid our municipal taxes. So this stuff listed is state only.
Okay.
So.
Good to know.
If I could jump back in, please,
Oh,
just
sure.
a moment too. I forgot. The Amoco folks, we met with them yesterday. They've had some changes, and so there were a few that they had that we weren't reported in a timely manner. We have them all here now, but they're going to reconvene and get everything going the first of the year. So.
Okay. And let me just take a minute too, just for purposes of recording and that we could introduce everybody else that's here, and I apologize for not doing that quicker. So, Dean, we have Dean Gates.
Dean Gates, Cindy Combs.
So, yeah.
Chris Judy, Director of Economic and Community Development.
Jack Frost, Chief Code Enforcement.
Mandy Honest, Clerk's Office.
Yep.
Dave Whitfield, Planning.
Oh, you can call him to represent myself.
All right, well, thank you very much for that oversight there that hopefully you corrected. So, questions?
Well,
Okay.
Madam Chair, the only thing that I notice on this report is we've got a couple different places with delinquent taxes, and I mentioned at a previous meeting that we're probably going to see more of that as the competition becomes stiffer out there, as more locations open up and the prices come down a little bit. The profit margins are getting pretty tight, so they're probably paying their employees and paying the electric bill and that kind of thing, and then taxes always seem to be the last thing that you want to send in.
John, did you have something?
I guess Jack and Mandy. So Erica's gone. So we have
Klinghardt.
the new Klinghardt. Have you? Do you interact with him? Have you talked to him? Or?
I have not. I actually have not. I don't have any knowledge of him. Kind of just through the grapevine. He was police.
He's a retired detective.
So.
Yeah.
I've met him a couple times. He's an interesting guy, but I just wonder if there's a change. Do you guys interact with him at all?
Well, we do. However, we've not had the opportunity to meet with him yet.
Is that worth doing? Sitting down and just saying hello.
I'm sure
Here's
at
what
some
we
point,
do.
Yeah.
Through the chair, we actually have a meeting with Mr. Klinker, or I'm sorry, Director Klinker next Tuesday, I believe, to establish those introductions. It's not planning staff to start it, but to start establishing that relationship with AMCO. And I believe, Mandy, have you met with them already?
I have not.
Okay. And maybe I'll extend that to your office as well. But you're
Yeah,
right.
it'd
We
be
wanted
worthwhile.
to meet the new director since we've known him in a past life, but not in this new life.
You know, one thing that, you know, we rely on them for a number of things in their application, and one is, like, they'll check a box and say, I have no felonies, I have no misdemeanors. Who's checking that? Are they? You can go to Courtview and check, it's not that hard, but if you're really overextended and busy.
They are
maybe-
required to do fingerprinting with their application.
And does that mean they go check the records?
They're
You got a
supposed
fingerprint.
to.
But,
That's-
but do they? You know, and they might. And that came up, and I don't know that it was an issue, but when we were looking at the new one on Spinard, Ace, where Alaska Ski used to be, and one of the citizen commenters went through Courtview and pulled out all these records on Courtview. None of them were within the time frame that was relevant, so you know they didn't really need to be listed. But there was a lot there. And it wasn't relevant because of the time frame, but it was an eye opener to me. So I don't know. Are they checking? We don't.
Through the chair, I think Mandy's correct. They are required to check, and we have no indication that they are not checking. I think you sort of illustrated one of the key points, which is within a certain time frame is only applicable.
And there was the recent case where one of the applicants had something pending for something totally different, but they denied his license and he appealed it, and so they then re-reviewed. So they have been checking,
Okay, good.
as far as we can tell.
Yeah, I don't know that they weren't, but it's one of those things. I don't know that they were either. You know, so okay. Well, that's good.
Any other questions?
So I'm sorry I missed the beginning. Christopher Constant here, and I'm really pleased to see that. Really pleased to see that. It's super shocking and great news. So thank you, everybody. And I assume it's not because you haven't been going out.
No, it's
All
not.
right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of us have that same thought.
Oh.
So, yeah, and I know when I looked at this last night, I was thinking, so where's the second page? Anyway.
Credit to the industry who is not here right now.
Okay, any other questions, comments on that one? Okay, so Alaska Sense, and I'm assuming this has to do with what the assembly did on Tuesday night, so.
This is not.
No,
So
okay.
this is
This is
their
the-
previous license
right.
renewals.
I did look at
That
this.
one of the conditions on both their operating retail and their cultivation was a 3-month update. And so I spoke to Jenna Weltzine, who is the representative for Alaska Sense. Neither the applicant nor she is available to be here today, but she said she looked at the documents. They're both fine with the drafts as written, but if there's any questions, she's available by email. So we can make a list and I can shoot her that and then forward stuff back to the members if there are any questions.
There-
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is a gigantic convention in Las Vegas, the biggest ever in the history of the marijuana industry, and that's where they are.
Yep.
So everybody, okay. All right, that makes sense. Go ahead, Mandy.
Yeah, looking at one of the ARs,
Which one?
they're,
With
Yeah.
Triple X one?
well, there's a few triple X ones.
For the 237? No, 236.
Well, on page 2, it has the section 1, and it's got 2 bullet points, and then it goes into the email from Jack Frost afterwards.
Okay, the big.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that the first bullet point there has the applicant coming before the assembly quarterly for updates. I don't know if that would be more appropriate to have the applicant come here before the CEDC. Something to think about.
And
That's
this
a good
was the
point. That's similar to
condition.
what we did.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And that's something that the assembly, so these are drafts, we did have to submit them to the agenda already for our deadlines, but Mr. Rivera suggested bringing it to this committee so that if there was any kind of floor amendments like that, Dean and I could get those and prep them in advance for the meeting on the 17th.
Okay.
So that's
this
something
is
we
on-
can definitely do.
Go ahead.
So, I think what you're saying is we kind of realized that. So when we did it, last Tuesday, we said, okay, let's send it here, and then this committee could recommend it goes to the assembly or not.
Yeah.
It's to save the staff, so we just did it, we weren't that clever 2 months ago. We're getting smarter.
So, going back to the previous report, even with the state, for the last quarter, are we suggesting that there were no violations for this operator?
Taxes. There's
Taxes, right, that's for the state, but in terms of the real problem that we've been having, there were no calls that we have reported
In the
or
last quarter from this facility, no, there were not.
It's a big deal.
miracle.
And Jack was saying that because they've got a new ventilation system, that's
Right.
probably taking care of that problem.
It's a huge
That was just
investment. on our part.
approximately 4 or 5 days while they upgraded their system. Yeah, they completely revamped their mechanical system.
Well, I was just asking, part of that was due to closure too, just for a week though,
They closed for a week.
as part of the upgrade process.
Wow. It's expensive.
Yeah, real expensive.
Okay.
Well, this actually, if I might, Mr. Chair, helps me in the decision we made on Tuesday, right? Because we didn't have any of this information before us on Tuesday, right? And so we had only a previous track record of all the problems and no track record of 3 full quarters of, or months of no violations. And so this is good news.
So an action here would be what? Would we just move to recommend approval
With the slight amendment
or amendment?
So this will have to be amended.
to the
right?
CDC.
But you
Yeah,
all
we
good
can
with that?
do a real easy one, yeah.
Oh, to amend it, so in the future, moving forward.
Well, this is to be passed, and so it's for this year, 2020, to come before us quarterly already. Instead of the assembly, it's by tribunal or by committee, it's better by committee.
So we have to amend this then?
Yeah.
Our original.
Yeah.
But this is not on the agenda to amend.
It is.
Yes, it is.
It's gonna be
Oh,
on
wrong one.
December 17th, so we can prepare an amendment to be ready. And I'll check with Dean, but we might, since we have the addendum, we might be able to just fix it.
Right, I don't think we need to amend the original. I think we need to.
Just says draft on it.
Right, yeah, for this purpose, we left draft on it,
Right.
but it has been submitted to the agenda.
John, if I might, I would assume
Spell it
that
out.
this supersedes this if we all agree at the meeting and 6 of us plus vote on it.
Page 2 of the packet you have in front of you, John?
The
Yeah,
one with
that
the
first
Triple
bullet
X,
point
well, the first, yeah.
is what we're talking about.
That's why this is all
Amended as amended.
So we just need to write CEDC, Assembly,
Oh, I see.
CEDC Committee.
Following
after
by
that.
this is okay. Before it change assembly to CEDC.
Yep.
I got it. Yeah.
And I think what we did at the meeting was Assembly CEDC as opposed to the CED Assembly. I forget exactly how we did it.
Assemblies.
The assembly
CEDC
is,
Let's
yeah.
just keep it uniform as best we can. So it's, yeah, I would move that we support this resolution as with the proposed amendment.
Second?
Any opposition? Hearing none, then that one will go forward as a recommendation. It looks like we don't have anything else on our agenda, unless there's something we forgot that we need to talk about, but otherwise we can, audience participation. Sorry, go ahead,
Wait a
Mr.
minute.
Peterson.
So 331 and 332, they're identical, or what's the difference?
Those
between
were
these two?
for reference to the members for what was passed previously, and it shows the conditions requesting that it come back in the 3 months and verification that they received their CO, and for the cultivation, the update of the outcome of the 6 pending odor violations.
Okay.
So those are just for reference. Those have already been passed. So these are the ones that are in response to those conditions.
All right,
But,
thank you.
okay, then for clarification, for me, then this will get a number.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
hasn't been assigned one, but
Yeah,
it's
at
on
the
the
time,
agenda.
right. Yeah, so it probably should be assigned a number now because they were publicly noticed. So
Okay,
they
all
should be
right.
on the
Okay, yeah.
website now. So So they do have numbers, I just don't know what they are off the top of my
So
head.
who's gonna prepare that amendment? Should we just do it
On the floor,
to
it's
speak it?
pretty
simple?
basic, yeah.
Well, we can do,
It's just
we
a
can do
draft.
it for the addendum.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have
I'm
a short
pretty
window
sure.
to substitute.
Yeah.
Till noon tomorrow.
Yeah, so we'll just draft another one with the update and put it on the addendum, and then you would just not move the old version.
Okay,
I
so
think that's the
call it an S
easiest.
version, then, okay. All right, that helps, makes it easy, so. All right, anything else? So, go ahead.
Just for just kind of comments generally off of this, are we soon taking up or having a conversation about the things we want to move forward with for potential changes to the process for marijuana? Is that like next year?
I think we
The next
penciled it in
We
first
had
meeting.
it scheduled for this meeting, but because a lot of the industry was in Las Vegas, it was decided to push it off to next meeting. We had one on the 26th of December, but it's after Christmas, so that was canceled. So it probably would be, we could put it on for January,
Okay.
the first meeting in January.
Okay.
So we talked a little about that. I mean, I have a list that's
Mhm.
somewhat my thoughts, but also just stuff that's
I have-
come up.
I have a list
And
as
you have
well.
a list.
We
Do
all
you
do.
wanna, did we send you the
I
list?
sent an email out. I have collected what I've gotten back. I haven't gotten anything other than from you guys. So
Oh,
from
okay.
other members, I
I
haven't
haven't,
received
do I?
anything yet. So
Yeah.
I'll send out a
Yeah.
reminder email.
Well, I just added this some stuff, I think, based on our conversations recently, but, you know, if you're, as long as you're comfortable, send it, but I even have things on there I don't know that I support, but there are things that have come up in our discussions, so it's really just a brainstorming list, let's look at it, there might be 2/3, we just say, no, 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 but I just, let's throw everything out there, we've got several years' experience now.
Madam Chairman, if I may, we were working towards a January meeting date for that conversation as well. So what may be helpful is if you have ideas or committee members have ideas, funnel all those through Mandy. That way we can begin the process of deduping, and that will help create the agenda and the discussion topics for that January meeting.
So do you have ideas like for planning, to streamline it yourselves?
We, Chair, yeah, we have a few. Most of ours are gonna land on the special land use permit side, not so much the licensing side, but we have a few.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I know one of the conversations we had too was what kinds of criteria could we decide were necessary when we were even trying to take something to this committee from off the regular agenda, you know, what kind of triggers do we need that might be necessary to help us be a little more purposeful in how we do our process, not just, hey, I'm thinking this is not such a great deal, let's look at this again. If we had some more criteria by which to decide when those things need to be discussed, then I think we'll be a little more better with our process too. So I think it's probably gonna be several weeks and months worth of a process.
Absolutely.
But Mandy, you will send that out again, the list that, because I know there was a pretty good list going, and if anybody wanted to add to that over the holidays, that would be,
Yep.
probably give us a really
And
good
Dean and
jumping
I
off.
have kind of a similar list of like the state changes that we haven't incorporated, some of the other stuff that wasn't imperative that we pass really quickly. But we've been kind of keeping track of that stuff too, so we're gonna add that to this.
Okay. Will we have anything else on the agenda next month that we know is coming up?
There
That
are
we have to take care of?
2 license
Okay.
reviews.
Reviews.
And I can't remember if it's the first or second meeting in January for those 2, but that's all I have.
Okay, we'll be busy, but yeah, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, when we first started having meetings and created a marijuana committee back about, 5 years ago, we said all along that we were probably going to have to adjust our, rules and regulations as we went along, as we found out additional information, or something wasn't working, or needed to be changed a little bit. So it's just part of the process, that ongoing, that we recognized years ago was probably going to be necessary.
Good. So we're at that point.
Yep.
So, yes, Ms. Solotail.
I think Chris isn't waiting.
Okay.
Yeah, just not on my behalf, but I know that I've heard Ms. Quinn Davidson mention that, and I think I heard you say this as well, Mr. Chair, that one of the important processes we need to go through is looking at the kind of penalty side of the equation and make penalties rational so they're effective, not just blunt force. And so we are going to be having that conversation, I would guess, along with ways to streamline the process, also ways to strengthen the position of the municipality in the review process.
Okay. Well, maybe something we can do then at the next meeting is just kind of take a look at our whole big, long list of all the things we need to do and try to come up with some kind of a schedule, because, yeah, not to mix apples and, I mean, it's all connected, but not to mix too much of it at once. Maybe we can figure out a work plan. So, because it sounds like all of a sudden I'm getting a picture of it getting pretty big, but,
Well, yeah, this
well,
is
just a lot to cover.
Exactly, and this
Yeah.
is really the first substantive overarching review, and so it should be meaningful. Everything else has been reactive, I think, for the most
Exactly.
part.
Yeah, I know that's been one of the reasons why I would like to see us have some kind of criteria for which we decide to send something back to this committee, so that's part of my motivation too. I like process, but keeps me focused. Okay, any other?
Yeah,
okay,
just
go ahead.
related, I don't know, should we consider having either a work session or a training on kind of what we do here for all the members? I thought that kind of came out a little bit when we kind of reviewed this last application. They don't necessarily all understand the process, but not everyone can make this meeting as well. I don't think they've all necessarily been through an entire application and kind of been in that kind of routine process. I felt like that some of that education might be really helpful and might actually go to what you're talking about a little bit with when do we need to send it back to CEDC, because I don't think they always understand how in-depth we've looked at some of the applications. So it's just an idea to toss out, because we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We went half the body, but the other half may not be really digging into these. And I actually think the training might also help inform as community councils are looking at applications as well. I don't know that they always understand kind of the review that they get.
Well, I understand that perfectly, and I know Mandy did a little exercise for us, several months ago, where we just kind of did a little bit of a role playing in terms of part of how this process works, but we didn't get really into a lot of the detail of the licensing and or even any of the land use regulation review. So I guess my question would be, and y'all can chime in on this, but do we do something like that before we have this conversation about what we want to change with our processes? Or do we wait till we get that stuff kind of lined up and then tell the rest of the assembly that this, anyway, I'm just kind of throwing that out there in terms of what happens first, so.
I think previously it started with a smaller group to kind of narrow down what specifically needs to be worked on, because I think if you go with an open plate to the entire body, it kind of tends to go nowhere. There's
Yeah,
just
and
a
I would
lot.
agree with that too, mostly because if we haven't really, there could be way too much conversation if we haven't said, well, this is what we'd like to change, because we know this isn't working, and anyway.
I have an alternate
Go ahead.
philosophy that we could think about, though, and that is that we seek input broadly on the question of how would you think we could do this better while we're having the conversation. We get that input pouring in, so it's not just us who are nose at the wheel. We have our perspective, we can hear more broadly. And so I don't know they have to be concurrent, parallel, or separate, consecutive. I don't know that it really matters, as long as the public knows, our members know, and they have an opportunity to feed us information as we're going through the process.
Well, how about we ask Felix if we just had a work session that just kind of explains how things happen now and going through the process of what a licensing applicant has to go through. And then we will, like Mr. Constant said, ask for any kind of input into how to change that, and then we'll try to synthesize it and bring it all together. Mr. Schutte.
Took every single word out of my mouth.
Okay.
I would recommend that prior to the discussion about changes with
Okay.
The additional request of members that are participating in this desktop or tabletop that they also, if anything comes out of that, they send it to Mandy for discussion by CPC.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that sounds good. So
I think it will help a
we will
lot.
make that recommendation then if there's no objection.
No objection. Thanks, Madam Chair. You know, and I've had this Northeast Community Council meeting that I go to regularly, and they kept giving me feedback that they thought we were giving out marijuana licenses willy-nilly, just right and left, you know. And so I took one of the application full, it was like 179 pages or whatever, and I'm saying,
The small ones.
this is what an application looks like. It's half of a ream of paper, basically. And some of them are even thicker than this. And they were pretty amazed that, you know, and I passed it around. I said, so, you know, how would you like to fill one of these out? You know, and they go, well, you need an attorney. And I'm going, yeah, for many hours worth of attorney. So it's, sometimes, you know, if you just educate them a little bit, it's great. But that reminds me, and I was going to ask Mandy, I've been getting comments from members of the Northeast Community Council, and they're already bouncing off the wall because they heard that there might be a marijuana store opening on Muldoon Road. Did you get an application for cannabis company on Muldoon Road?
I believe that Alaska Sense has another retail proposed for that location.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. Because they're building a new building next to Tenth and M Seafood there, and so there was a lot of speculation as to what that building was, and everyone on the community council immediately assumed it was going to be a marijuana business, and it looks like they might actually be right. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact address, but they have we received notice that they submitted an application to the state for a retail in that area. So it might be them.
All right, thanks.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So any other comments or questions? Okay, well then, if there's no objection, we'll move, sorry. Yes, I was gonna say, we'll move into audience participation. Mr. Haberman, I'm sorry to cut you off there when I recognized you, and then we got distracted with more conversation, but please, go ahead.
My name is Eugene Carl Haven. I represent myself. I live in Matthew Valley. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, the decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. I've said this many times at this meeting, but I'm repeating it because it's policy of indifference. Today's meeting, there's an agenda, yes. It's on that table to my left for the public to pick up, along with other documents. But none of these papers, including the agenda, is on their website for the public, with a notice for the public to know what the subject is and so forth, and the public could be saying, okay, maybe I want to attend the meeting. The public is blind to this meeting unless they come here and see those papers there and say, oh wow, I'm glad I'm here for that meeting. But it's business as usual. Also, we need to stop the situation without being recognized by the chair at these meetings. People just speak out. And by the way, as far as I see here, I'm the only one from the public in this room, except for members of the public that are interpreters assisting here. I'm the only one in the public here. Where is the public? They're not here. And there are issues here, but how's the public going to want to come here if they're blinded to what is before at this meeting? And the meetings could be a lot shorter, because I hear frequently when you attend the assembly meetings how you change the rules and make it so to cut time out, when you're really not saving time. You're saving time, but you're not saving time, because you're cutting time from the public and as an excuse that you need more time. And what's happened is this, is that, what was I always going to say, forgive me, I just spaced it out, but prepare for a prepared statement next Tuesday from me. I am making an appearance request. Finally, it was scheduled in on the agenda. You'll see attachment to what that subject matter is, but it was filed a while back, and I'm glad it was finally accepted. And for the record, I saw it on the agenda as to check the website, but I have not received any written notification from the clerk that I'm speaking Tuesday night. Had I not seen the website, looked up what's on the agenda, I wouldn't know that request was granted, with all due respect. That says business as usual. And one last footnote is, I'm getting really tired of people who are not doing their jobs right, keep on getting rewarded as new employees for their jobs when they're not doing it right. And for the good example is, to have a situation with minutes for the assembly being approximately 1 year behind, and there's no ramifications except that it's so, that's the way it is. And there were excuses about money and all that, but for all due respect, people, assembly members that were on the assembly had no real chance to approve those minutes because the end result was like more than a year behind. So this is really showing a very bad situation, and has been overlooked by the assembly, with all due respect. And thank you for the chance to speak, and my time respectfully is up.
Mr. Haberman. Okay, if there's no objection, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Do I need a motion to adjourn this committee?
Move to adjourn.
We have one. Any objection? We're adjourned.